does an AGI or a general intelligence need to be conscious? Can I then ask you, if it is not conscious, then can it be more intelligent than us? Because as per me, our intelligence is because of what we perceive around us by our senses: vision, comprehension, imagination, creativity, pain, grief, etc. So can you please talk about that? And you also use the term qualia there, if you can also elaborate on that.
Yes. So the word consciousness, of course, it has a lot of different meanings. Marvin Minsky calls it a suitcase word because there are all these different ideas that are thrown into a suitcase and then somebody puts a label on it, consciousness, So to understand consciousness, you have to open the suitcase and unpack it and sort of, say, well, what does each piece mean? So to talk about what I consider the most important aspect of consciousness for intelligence or for AGI is self-awareness. And I think that's what a lot of people mean by consciousness. Are you conscious about what you're doing? Are you conscious about your actions? Are you conscious about the implications of what you're doing? Now, that requires a self-awareness. The AI needs to be able to conceptualize itself as an agent acting in the world. So it needs to have a self-concept. It needs to have this concept of, this is what I am causing in the world to happen. And it'll also have awareness of its thought processes, of its cognitive processes to some extent. Similar to us, but actually quite a bit more than we have. We don't have a lot of access to our thought processes. So an AI will have, more access to its thought process. So it has to be self-aware to be intelligent, or to put it another way, self-awareness will be a byproduct of high-level intelligence, of abstract conceptual intelligence. So it's not a question of can we have human-level intelligence without awareness, self-awareness, or consciousness? No, we can't. Now, you can have narrow AI that can, play Go or chess or do anything like that without self-awareness, but you can't have an AGI that can actually do really generally useful things in the world without being aware of itself as an agent and conceptualizing that. So that's sort of the simple answer. Now, the qualia question, I think there's, in my mind, there's just a lot of confusion about, philosophers can introduce sort of new terms and make them seem really plausible and important. And there isn't necessarily such a big mystery in it. So it's like paradoxes, some of the paradoxes, the sentence is not true, and philosophers have spent, whole careers trying to make sense of it, when in reality, the answer to that is actually pretty simple. It's, the philosophers are tying themselves into knots. And qualia, in my opinion, is sort of that nature. When you, for example, what a lot of people use the reference, what does it feel like to be now, it sounds, on the surface, it sounds like a legitimate question or an important question, but it really isn't, because if you compare that now to somebody saying, if you're male and you say, what does it feel to be pregnant?
Right.
So you can converse, you can talk to women who are pregnant or have been pregnant, and you can get some idea, and they might, tell you it's like having indigestion or whatever it is. I haven't had that conversation.
Right.
So, and so you have some kind of a general sense then of what it is, but you can't experience it yourself. So it's basically trying to describe the experience to somebody else that is personal of that. So, and that's really what qualia is. What does it feel like to see red? Well,
right.
It feels, it's different from seeing blue.
Yes.
And if you're colorblind, well, you're not going to have that experience, and you assume that the experience of seeing red is reasonably similar for people who can see red. But the overall experience can be different, I mean, there may be emotions attached to seeing red, literally,
Right.
So, there isn't more to the mystery. You're just trying to explain the personal experience you have of something to somebody else, and their limitations in doing that. And that's sort of the mystery of qualia. There isn't really more to it.
So then, can my conscious or my self-awareness be different from a machine? They can have a self-awareness as well. They can be conscious as well, but they might not have the same kind of self-awareness. I don't know how to put that in words, but
yes, of course,
yeah.
it will be very different. Of course, it will be different. Unless we specifically build in a heartbeat, for example, they're not going to have a heartbeat. They're not going to feel sweating. They're not going to. There's this whole wide range of physical sensations that we have as part of our self-awareness, and they're not going to have that. And if we build it in somehow, it's going to be different from the biological experience anyway. And why would we bother building it in?
Right.
So of course their experience of their consciousness will be very, very different from.
And more than biological, I was also thinking maybe something which is more like a thought or a comprehension, which is like, I cannot do anything wrong. As a human, I know that I can do wrong because I cannot calculate something which is coming in the next 1 or 2 days by so much accuracy that a machine can. So, I mean, their comprehension or their self-awareness of what they can actually achieve might be completely different from ours. And that might be, yeah.
Yes, it will be, but not actually as nearly as much as you think, because one of the things that we've already discovered in sort of our scientific endeavors and mathematical endeavors development is that most things in reality are not predictable.
Right.
And the reason they're not predictable is A, chaos theory, and B, quantum mechanics. And it's not just that they're not predictable because we can't calculate enough. They are inherently not predictable. You can even have relatively simple formulas that the only way you can get the outcome of that is by running the formula, by running the algorithm. And there is absolutely no way of predicting what the results will be without actually running it. So we know that. We know that now. So we know that, in reality, things are not predictable in the real world. And an AI will know that. So yes, certainly, things that are mathematical, that can be calculated, that don't fall into that realm. Yes, of course, but that's really not that much different from a human who's an expert in a certain field and, who can rattle off, I don't know, the different chemical elements, or who's an expert at playing piano or guitar or something, right. And you can they can tell you exactly what chord they're playing or what chord progression and so on without having to think about it, and to people who don't have that ability, that might seem like magic. So they'll be very confident that they can do that. So in a similar way, in AGI will be confident, and I don't even have to put confident in scare quotes, because there will really be metacognition. There has to be metacognition within an AI of the degree of certainty on something. That's an important aspect of knowing when you don't know something, or knowing when you can solve something, or knowing when you're not sure that you can solve something. Because you don't want to waste your time doing something that is impossible, or you want to have the confidence that you can do something if you know that that's within your capability.